live, of course. And we have a fantastic guest today, which with a very interesting backstory. And Johnny, Eric, so how are you two doing today? Great
Good
Thanksgiving?
morning.
Very well.
Yeah, typical very Thanksgiving. We had a house full. We hosted, so yeah, we were
Awesome.
ready for it to be over.
Yeah. So
When
Johnny,
you say "we," Eric,
yeah,
what's that?
yeah,
What?
Johnny, can you tell us a little bit
What?
about Eric and our guest today?
No, not much.
Okay.
But Eric and I, we met, at when Scott Brick and I did our, business of audiobook workshop in, LA in early in 2024. Um, and then I don't remember, Eric, if you were a member of the Johnny Heller Alumni Facebook workshop group
Mhm.
prior to, but he is now. And
Yes.
to be fair, when we mentioned Don and I on this show that, hey, we're always ready to have guests. If you want to join us on the show, you're more than welcome. Well, Eric said, I want to do that. And so he said, like, can I come on the show? And since I couldn't find any guests anyway, I said, sure. No, that was it. No, I said I was happy to have him. So we invited him in and he's here. And I have studied up on Eric a little bit on his background. It is fascinating and we want to hear more about it. So I don't have a long-term relationship with Eric yet. It's the beginning of a
Yes.
long-term relationship.
Yes. That's good.
I can't know that for sure, but let's see how today goes anyway.
I hope to nail the audition.
Well,
Hey, you passed. You can be friends with them.
so we found out that Eric and I happen to live within 15 minutes of each other, and that's something that we learned in this last year. And yet, the only chance we've ever had to meet prior is he probably pulled me over for speeding one time because he was you started off on the TV show Chips, I think it was, and then
Yeah,
became a
well, I
highway
wish.
patrol guy. Is that correct? Is that how it all started?
Not Yeah, not quite.
Okay.
I was watching Chips on TV as a 10-year-old. I'm not that old.
Oh,
But what's funny is being a CHP officer, I can watch an episode and go, "Oh, I know where they're driving. I know where they filmed that. I've driven that. I wrote a ticket there. I took a crash there," whatever. It's my neighborhood, a
so you
stomping
were in
ground.
the CHP for how long?
Yeah, I was a CHP officer for 21 years from, 2000 to 2021. I
Wow.
got out of the academy. I graduated the academy in May of 2000, and then 3 months later, 9/11 happened. And so for a brand new CHP officer and things that did to police forces all across the country, everybody's working 12-hour shifts and no days off and all that kind of stuff. That was kind of a big welcome into, "Oh, wow, all right." I remember watching it on TV, and I was actually off that day, and I called my supervisor and I said, "Are we coming in?" And he goes, "We don't know yet. We'll call you and we'll let you know." But, it's like, "What's going on?" Like, we're not ever no one knew anything yet.
For those of you who don't know, we're talking CHP is California Highway Patrol.
Of course, it's an assumption
Since
I made. Everybody
you
should
guys
know
live in LA and
CHP.
California, you know that, but
Yeah, you're
a
right. And
lot of
I
people
assume
are surprised they don't live in California.
no.
What?
Yeah,
Wait,
I
are you
know.
gonna tell
Yeah.
me there's other states?
There's
Yeah.
smarter
Yeah.
people
Not
is
as
what
important or as interesting or as liberal, but yeah.
there's smarter
Uh,
people is what you're telling us. Yes.
None have our
No, well,
coast.
there are people who are smart enough not to live in
Yeah.
what's clearly a flood zone or a landslide.
Yeah.
You guys in LA, all those houses built on stilts. Every time I drove by, I'm like, "What, you idiots?"
Yeah.
Sooner or later, soon that hill's gonna move.
Well, and we have just as
But
bad where people build on hills, and I look over that and I think, "That is gorgeous." But you know what?
Mhm.
Every 20 years, there's a fire that's gonna come
I was
down that
just gonna
yeah.
mountain.
say
And
I was
I
just
look
gonna
at it and
say.
I just think, "Okay, it's just a matter of time. It may not happen this week or this month or
Yep.
this decade, but it's gonna
Yeah,
happen." Anyway,
to hijack for a second, Joanne and I are looking for, apartments, place to live, and we're considering either a new place in Manhattan or maybe get a place somewhere else. But we like the idea of a lake or something. But we're really careful. I'm not going to live any place that requires flood insurance because that tells me there's probably going to be a flood,
yeah.
and I
But
just don't see why. I
but
don't
the
really
problem
understand why you
is
would do that.
my wife and I have discussed it. There's nowhere to go. You have hurricanes, you have fires, you have tornadoes, you have earthquakes, you have nor'easters. There's nothing. There's nowhere you can't escape any natural disaster, pick your
Well,
poison,
but you're
you know,
not
which one can you live one
you don't
with better?
pick an active volcano to live in, though, you can make some
No,
choices. Yeah.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I say this, I would rather live where an earthquake can come without warning and take my house down than to see a hurricane coming 3 days away and watch it barreling towards my stuff. I just if you're gonna take me out, take me out. I don't wanna know about it
Okay.
ahead of time.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
noted.
yeah.
Noted.
Yeah,
Let's
I'll take one right
let
here versus 2 down here.
let me adjust my plans for you. Just a minute.
Right?
Yeah.
Just
Well,
make it painless, that's all I
Christmas is coming. I wanna do what I can for you.
before
ask.
before we
You're a
get into
giver.
the narration and your transition, which is popular these days, before you were with the CHP, you had some experience in the military. Is that correct?
Yeah, 8.5-year veteran with the US Air Force, United States Air Force.
Well,
And,
thank you.
thank
Seriously,
you, thank you.
that's
More my pleasure.
and what
And I
did you
was
do
a
there?
I was a forward air controller, so I was the guy I was stationed at Army bases because we're attached to Army units. We're the ones that called in an airstrike. You see the A-10s or the F-16s, we're the ones that tell them where to point their nose to shoot the gun to blow up the tanks and stuff out on the battlefield. Now, fortunately for me, I never saw actual action because I joined, like, right after, Desert Storm was over, and I got out right before 9/11, right before Afghanistan, so I was relatively peaceful that whole time.
So you were just, but that meant you trained as if there was a war going on, I'm assuming,
Yeah,
and so you
yep,
were practicing doing whatever would have had to
yep,
happen should there be an
exactly,
emergency and there was a situation
exactly.
and you needed to direct
Yeah,
somebody to take something out, correct?
that's exactly it. On Army base, they have the big giant ranges where they put their tanks and stuff like that. We would go out there on our Humvees with our radios, and the A-10s would fly over, and there's static targets out there for them to hit, and we would practice telling them where to, "Okay, you see that target? And you see that target? Blow it up." That's yeah, we would exactly train for when it was gonna happen.
I mean, it kind of sounds like fun unless it's live ammunition.
Well, no, well, okay, so for what we did, it was live ammunition. They're real bombs and they're real bullets,
Okay.
but they're being shot at nobody's out there.
Right.
But the fun part is when the bullets were gone and the bombs were gone, we could turn the planes and have them come at us. So you have an A-10 barreling down at you at 350 miles per hour, and you go, "So that's what the bad guy's gonna see right before he buys it."
Oh,
That was cool.
yeah.
It's like,
That
"That's
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
that's
young.
unique."
Listen to us. We're like kids. That's fun. That's cool.
Well,
These aren't
you got
plastic
airplanes
guys.
flying over your head at, 50 feet over your head and stuff like that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
Well, and those guys do train. Yeah. I mean, they're
Yeah,
training 24/7 and
yeah,
every day of the
yeah,
year because they have to be prepared for anything
yeah,
that could happen. So that's really cool.
yeah, exactly,
So
exactly.
so of course, I mean, it makes perfect sense to me because I think this is pretty logical. Most will agree with me. Working in the Air Force and then CHP, that's a natural for being a narrator. I think it's a career
Absolutely,
Yeah,
path.
just
absolutely.
It
Uh,
how in the world?
yeah.
wha- I don't want to
Mo
say
mo
this
most
sounds
people begin as sumo wrestlers, and then they kinda just gradually move into the, narration game. Yeah, so
right, right. Well, so the last few years of my career as a police officer, I worked inside, and I was the guy that worked in the front office, so when you came to get your car out of impound or when you came to get your ticket signed off or to file a report, something like that, I was the guy that you came to see. Why is that funny?
well, I don't want to admit I had my car when I was younger. I had a car that got towed away in the middle of the night because I
Yeah,
parked in a parking lot that was,
yeah.
and and I
and
had
you're the friendly fellow we deal with.
I,
Yes,
I
yes.
knew too many people at these offices, unfortunately. No, and I had a fix it ticket one time that was
Yep,
a headlight or a tail light that was out, and I had to go into the sheriff's and prove that I had
yep,
fixed the thing. And so, I mean, I
yep.
kind of know a little bit about what you're talking about.
You're describing exactly what the process is, and so anyway, I'm the guy you talk to when you walk in the station, and so I would say maybe 3 or 4 times over the course of about 5 years, I had the statement that so many of us have had, "You have a great voice. Have you ever do you do radio? Do you" all that kind I got that 3 or 4, a few times, and I'm like, "Oh, well, okay. Yeah, thanks. That's interesting." So it ruminates in the back of your mind and stuff like that, and about a year before I retired, I Googled, how to do this, and ACX came up. I think ACX comes up when anybody Googles audiobook narration. That's probably one of the first things that comes up. So I watched a few of their videos about what you need to build a studio, how to build your studio, what just
Who is
the
this? What place is this?
ACX,
Oh,
ACX.
okay, okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
For those that don't know, so you have Amazon is up here and they own Audible, and then Audible does their stuff through ACX down here. So it's a pyramid scheme. No, not really. So I watched their videos on how to do it, and I bought, the minimal stuff that you need to have a studio and to record semi properly and professionally, and took a stab at it and been doing it since. So last month was 3 years. 3 years.
May
No,
I
I'm sorry. No, that's my retirement. This coming February is 4 years as a narrator.
did you take any acting workshops or courses?
I have not taken any courses. I have had a couple of coaching sessions, one with you, Johnny, one with Scott. I've got a couple in mind that I want to do, just haven't gotten around to do them. But I have never taken. I'm a character all unto myself.
Okay.
What types of books have you specialized in so far? And tell people where you are in the journey, and then
Yeah.
what did you gravitate toward?
So, strangely enough, I started and I had some gigs out on Fiverr, and strangely enough, my first several things that I narrated were a bunch of, meditations, which I never in a million years would have thought that that's what my voice was suited for. But I tell people that I talk to in this business, you sometimes don't get to pick what you're good at. The industry will tell you what you're good at. And so for a while in the beginning, like I said, I was doing a bunch of meditations, not the type where you listen, there's noise in the background and imagine an ocean, and imagine not that kind, but like these were long form, international, as a matter of fact, like out of Mexico and South America. They were doing some sort of videos and stuff. So that's where I started. And then since then, I've done nonfiction, I've done science fiction, I've done military sci-fi, I've done thrillers, police, crime, medical thrillers. I've got a couple, 2 or 3 narrators on my resume that I've worked with repeatedly. I've got a couple more that are
Mm,
going to become repeats here in the near future.
You mean
So
authors?
what's that?
You mean authors?
Oh, I'm sorry, what did I say?
You said
Narrators?
narrators, but that's okay.
Yes, exactly, authors, I'm sorry. So there's not one that I gravitate. I've done it all. I don't know what my niche is yet. I've done some zombie apocalypse horror type stories. Yeah, I'm kind of all over the map at the moment.
The ones you're doing, though, how many many characters, a few characters?
I would say I would well, there's one I did last year. Um, can I give titles?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So there's a book I did last year called 9 Days in Rome,
Not that title, though.
yeah,
No.
and I hate that book. No, and It was about a chaperone, an American chaperone, chaperoning a bunch of high school students in Rome, and so that book probably had a total of a dozen characters, um, more than half
Mhm.
of which were, or at least half of which were high school students. So those were a little bit easier to voice versus a half a dozen adult characters, male and female, that have all their distinct personalities and characteristics and stuff like that. But I've done, yeah, probably I would say 10-ish is the most that I've done.
Okay, but that's a
May
lot
I
for
offer an
somebody.
observation?
Yes, sir.
When you mentioned you haven't found your niche because you're in all these, you kind of all over the map. There's something to be said for that in a positive way.
Okay.
It makes you, while there is a move toward being a sort of specificity in the genres you do for a lot of actors, because then they concentrate on this or that. The idea of this as an actor's world, and that's why I asked about acting classes. The idea is there's so much you can play, and that you're playing all these different roles in all these different
Mhm,
genres opens
mhm.
you up to the ability to be cast in all those things. For
Okay.
example, if you're successful
Mhm,
in the zombie apocalypse books, and equally wonderful to listen to in nonfiction, military history, and
mhm,
equally happy with, rom-coms, Well, that makes you marketable in a lot of things. I mean, one of the
Sure.
things I've really enjoyed in my career is I'm not in a specific show. There are things I do more than others,
Right.
and you'll start doing that,
Yeah.
but doing it across the board because I know so many, especially newer narrators coming in saying, "I'm just gonna do science fiction. I'm just gonna do
Right.
nonfiction. I'm just gonna do, romance, erotica kinda stuff." That's fine if that's what you want, but understand, once you make that decision, that's what you're gonna do. So after you
Mhm.
finish your, erotica book, your next book is an erotica book, followed quickly by an erotica book.
Right.
And for me, that takes some of the fun out of it for me. Like
Sure.
this week, this month alone, I'm working on books about Elvis. I'm doing a book about pigeons. I'm gonna be doing a book on Earl Weaver, the baseball guy. So
Right.
there's just I like the idea of spreading across because it makes it fun for me.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
get that.
so there's nothing wrong and a whole lot right with the way you're doing it. I'm just
Well,
gonna say that.
I thought I had the thought when the question came up, and I almost didn't wanna say, "I'll take anything," because I enjoy doing it. So I didn't wanna make it sound like I'm a hack who'll do anything, at all that you throw at me, you know what I mean? But it's kinda the truth. I mean, I'll do almost anything because I enjoy doing it, you know?
Yeah, but that's not a bad thing
Th
early in a career where
Yeah.
until you've done some things, you sometimes don't know how it's going to totally turn out. And I've got the title you mentioned, was it 9 Days in Rome?
Yes.
Okay, well, that one, if first off, I don't know about 9 days, but that's a 25-hour book. Is that right?
It was long. It could very well be. It was
Well,
very long.
okay,
Does
that
it
it
have
says
Are you looking at the cover? Does it have the stone angel?
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
that's
put the
it.
link up here. It's 20,
Yeah.
well, it's actually 26 hours because it's 25 hours and 54 minutes. I'll put the
Okay.
link in here.
Yeah, that sounds about right. It was long.
Okay, so that's not trivial. So, I
And
don't
there was a lot of Italian in it that I had to go back and retake and do pickups on.
did you have any Italian in your background?
No, I'm a really, really good mimic. I can pick up on accents really well, and I I've watched enough TV and enough movies that I can read a word in Italian and probably say it 75% of the time correctly, but there's another percentage that, "Nope, you butchered that." You know what I mean?
Way better than me. That I would have, if it's a 25-hour book and 10 characters, I would have just it, there's a term for that for me, which is called no. It's way over my pay grade, but so many people, if they did
Yeah,
something in the background, if they were a kid and they do it mimicked, and then you
yeah,
take you and you work with someone like Johnny and you work with someone like Scott, man, that's a beautiful thing. I'm going to put that
yeah.
link in the just so
Oh,
people know.
awesome. Thank you so much.
That's pretty cool.
there
That's
is something to be said too. I'm gonna pick up on something you said, Eric, about, you don't wanna sound like a hack, but I'll do anything. And I understand what you mean. I think everyone listening and watching understands what you mean. There is Jeffrey Kafer, some years ago, he and I worked together a number of times, but he said, and I've always thought it was a great thing to say. He said, if when you're starting out, particularly, you don't want to take just everything. If it's a shitty book, that was the word he used. Um, and you do a lot of shitty books, then you'll be experienced at shitty books.
Yeah.
There's something to be
No,
said for that. So
right,
no matter where you are in your career, I know, and this is going on for everybody. It's particularly, and it happens. It's not just ACX, but sometimes individual authors, sometimes even the big five. Sometimes you get a script that is just simply not edited properly, which becomes a problem. Or
yeah,
sometimes you'll get a book that simply isn't good. I've done over 1,000 books. I'm telling you now, they're not all the best books I've ever read. They're
right,
not, they can't all be, and some
right.
books are far better. It's not just me liking it. Some authors should be nowhere near a word software, computer thing. They shouldn't be able to write things. Just because you can speak English doesn't mean you need to write a book. Um, so some books aren't great.
Yeah,
And there has to be something said if I say, "I want you to record my book." "Oh, thank you." And it hits you, the actor's ego. "He
mhm,
wants me. He wants me."
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
what I wrote is crap. All you're gonna do is do c how it's hard, like, if that 25-hour book you did, which you said is great,
Yeah,
that's great. But what if it was 25 hours of crap?
Right.
that would be very difficult for me to take the next book because
Right.
so you've gotta have some you know what's important? Scott Brick says, I'll quote all the great guys. Scott Brick, you've got to have the ability in the know-it-all to say no. No is an important word in negotiations, and some actors have got to say no.
And that's hard at people at my level. That's really
Yes, I
hard
understand that.
because yeah, because like you said, "Oh, they want me. Yes, I'll do it." But then, or let's take ACX, for example, they put the audition script up and the audition, 3, 4, 5 pages, whatever, and it's fine. Then you get the full manuscript and you're like, "Oh my god, what?" You know "Who
Yeah.
wrote this?" kinda thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's very hard at my level to say, and my level being I'm between 40 and 50 books at this point. So,
Okay.
and granted, at the very beginning, the vast majority of those were royalty shares. But I'm graduating and all this stuff to higher pay rates and stuff like that. But I'm still at a level where it is very hard to either say no outright or to properly negotiate for a fair PFH rate.
That negotiation th okay, that's super important, and one of the things yeah,
Yeah.
and there's nothing wrong necessarily with royalty share if it makes money,
Right.
but part of the actor's negotiation thing is, if let's say and I'll tell you, let's say this is for you, if you wanna negotiate with Don Baarns to do his book, and he offers you 200 bucks and you say, "Well, geez, that's barely gonna cover all my costs," let him know. You can negotiate because he wants you, so already you're in the catbird seat. You say, "Look, Don, I need to make 250, so I'm in the union range there, and my editor needs another 75, so that's 3 and a quarter. Can you" so what I like to do when I'm negotiating, I say, "Don, pay me my rate," or you can say, "Don said I can't do 250. Can you do 225?" Yes, so there's a negotiation. Let's do this 225, and your next book you do 250. How's that? Okay.
Yep.
Then
Mhm.
my engineer, Donnie Baarns, needs $75 an hour. So the book's 10 hours, it's gonna be 750 bucks. Will you pay him for that? Because I don't edit. And so, see, you start negotiating these things. You can also negotiate the time a book is due.
Sure.
If I say to
Sure.
you, I need this book on whatever Friday it is. I need it, Friday the something or another. And you say, well, geez, how about if it's in your office on that Monday when you come in? Because I promise you, they're not going to be in the office Friday
Nothing.
anyway, waiting for your
Right.
book.
Right.
So that would give you Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to finish things up. And people don't realize you're not, you're asking for 1 day, but it's really 3 days.
Right.
And you say it'll be in their office
Yeah.
Monday. So all those kind of things, this is, I think, little tricks and tips that
Yeah.
are make positive negotiations so that you can turn these no's into yeses if you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you say to Don, no, I can't work for 175 because that's the best I can do, I'm sorry, I have to turn you down. You
Yeah.
have to, if if you're going to negotiate, you must be willing to walk away.
Yes,
And I
absolutely.
know
That
for a lot of newer narratives, you can't walk away, but you have to sometimes.
yeah.
Otherwise, you're gonna be working your value is what you said,
Of
and
course,
if you're
absolutely.
valueless, you're valueless.
And I'm in the very fortunate position of having been retired and, getting a retirement check. I'm not doing this to put bread on the table. This is something
Right.
to occupy my time for, fun money, whatever. So I can afford to be pickier than a lot of people might be. But me, myself, my own personality is such that it's hard for me to sometimes say it's hard still, you
Yeah, no
know?
one wants to say no because
Right.
someone just said, "I want you to act for me.
Yeah.
I want you to take the thing I wrote and share it with the
Right.
world." They go, "Oh my god, of course I will." How much money do
Yeah.
I need to pay you to do that? It's
Right.
like we
Exactly.
switch it around. 'Cause
Exactly.
there's nothing nicer, I mean, Don Barnes knows he's my go-to for any technical just the man's a genius, and he knows it, but I think if I didn't think he was and make it very clear that I think he's a fantastic guy, he may be less willing to work with me,
Yeah.
So that's part of
Yeah.
it too. There's, I'm not saying I'm buttering you up, Don, but I blow a lot of smoke up your skirt to get what I need. I'm letting you know right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
What
I
you enjoy.
wouldn't work with you without it. Um, by the way, Eric, I don't Tom. So since this is Ask Us Anything, but Tom Barkley had a really insightful comment here, and he noticed and realized that your prior jobs required insanely succinct communication skills.
Yeah.
Because
Um,
if you're gonna say, "Hey, bomb this one thing," and "Whoa, hey, You know, somewhere east of the Mississippi would be fine. I don't think that's going to cut it. You actually
Right.
have to assess situations. And then, of course,
Yeah.
if you're in the highway patrol,
Yeah.
uh, there's a few of us that were traveling over the speed limit. You had a lot of targets. It's a target rich environment when I drive around LA.
But I couldn't bomb those.
That's true,
I
but
couldn't call in airstrikes on those.
I'll bet sometimes you wanted to. The but but it also meant that you had to communicate with a bunch of other people to coordinate things. If you were doing a pullover and
Yeah.
you suspected, hey, this
Yeah.
could get intense because of whatever the situation was, you're
Sure.
accessing. You're also. I did notice, for example, but everyone should go ahead and go on Audible and look up Eric. And what you'll notice is all the cover art for the books that he's done, they're excellent. So that is something. I don't know if do you pay any attention to that? No?
Well, I know well, I obviously I know what the cover art looked like, but I never made a connection that they were good, bad, or indifferent until you said so.
Yeah, I'm looking at a bunch of them here and going, okay, the authors that you worked with, the rights holders that you worked with, invested in some good graphic artists, and that's actually a good thing. If somebody's going to do royalty share, don't do a book that has a bad cover. It's an
Oh, yeah.
automatic no. Any more than right now, nobody will take you if your audio quality isn't at least at a minimal level. It has to be reasonable, and above average
Yeah.
is where you want to be, or they're just going to say, I can just go work with Eric or Johnny because they not only narrate well, but their tech stuff is fine. And so there are some minimum things, but the covers on your stuff, when I look at your things, it's like, all right, those are good covers. That 9 Days in Rome is excellent.
Yeah.
And so many of the other ones are, and that makes a difference if you were doing, I don't know if that one was royalty share or not, but whatever.
No, that was not.
Okay. But people
Yep.
are investing. You really want your
Yep.
rights holders to know that they're making the minimal investment. A minimal investment means that they're actually getting a book cover that looks good and looks like it's well done and not like I did it. All right. That would be a
Yeah.
bad day.
Well, what Tom had mentioned about communication, and I forgot to mention, the last few years of my job with the CHP also, I was a backup public information officer, so I taught classes. I would get in front of the camera. So, again, you have to be able to form a sentence with more than 3 syllables in each, so that kinda thing, and stand up in front of people and speak. So yeah, what's funny, I was comfortable in front of the camera, I'm comfortable in front of crowds. I find it very amusing that so many of the other narrators that I know
Yes.
don't I'm gonna say that I'm gonna say this phrase exactly. They don't like the sound of their own voices. And to toot my own horn, I love the sound of my voice with all of the sarcasm that comes with that statement. I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The statement is factual, but how do you do this job and not if you don't like hearing yourself talk and emote and act and play? I just that's an amusing point of view to me.
I
I think it's
I
fascinating.
think a lot of people who say that are, to coin a phrase, bullshitting. Um, I just don't believe it because if we're in the voiceover business or the acting business in general, I mean, would I like to be as good looking as Don Barnes? Well, sure, but, you gotta draw the line somewhere. You are what you are, but you have to accept who you are and what you are. Now there's things you can work on, I mean, but the sound of your voice is the sound of your voice. You can maybe change your accent, your syntax and things, but you are what you are, and I think everybody, while they say that they're just I really don't like the sound of my voice, is generally a cry to say, "I love the sound of your voice." That's what people wanna hear, it's that kinda thing. So I never trust anyone who says
Yeah.
things like that, unless
Okay.
Well,
their voice really sounds like shit. Yeah.
and
Okay.
and the one other thing is though that I do have a concept of how I sounded before I ever heard it recorded. And what I will say is that people are surprised at what they sound like to the rest of the world because
Sure.
they
Oh, yeah.
have their head voice and the
Yeah.
way our brain is wired.
The skull
We
shape and
hear
everything,
ourselves
yeah.
differently than the rest of the world. And so if there's any minor problem, it's people try to get their voiceover, try to get their narration to sound exactly like the voice in their head, which
Yeah.
nobody else has ever
Mm.
heard. And when their
Yeah.
mom said, "You have a wonderful voice," it wasn't the same voice that they're hearing. And so they need to
Right.
trust their mom, and say, "Oh,
You're just saying that, mom.
Gilbert
You're
Gottfried
you're you're obligated to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gilbert Gottfried's mom probably always told me he had a great voice,
Yeah.
in spite of the way he sounded, yeah. And let me ask you this, Eric. I see there's a lot of, newcomers here to our little group. There's,
Mm.
Dylan and Dwight and Carlos and those guys. Friends of yours, clearly, showing up here to make these statements as though they thought we were gonna rake you over the coals. Everybody's saying, "He's a great guy. He's" you know,
I didn't pay them.
Don and
I didn't pay him a dime.
I have not set Eric up to tear him down. This it's not a job interview. We like him.
Oh, guys, stop it. Stop. Come on, come on.
Yeah,
No,
come on,
stop.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, stop.
I
yeah,
assume you don't
yeah.
still have friends in the military, thankfully, so we won't get targeted anytime soon. Oh, I guess we wouldn't know what happened. All right, it'll be over before
No,
we
no,
knew.
no, no, just a plane would
Yeah.
drop on your head, yeah.
Well,
Now what's the start I know that you're a big Star Trek, Star Wars guy. What's all that about?
so, okay, so Star Wars and Star Trek is Coke and Pepsi, it's Ford and Chevy, that whole thing. I am slightly more Star Trek, just you have to pick one. But, so actually on Fiverr, I also have a voiceover gig where I do a Darth Vader impersonation because I am part of this worldwide charity, Star Wars charity group called the 501st Legion. We dress up in Star Wars cosplay. Dawn, if you on December 14th, if you watch the Hollywood Christmas parade, you'll see the 501st in there. We are the only Lucasfilm Disney blessed Star Wars cosplay group because our costumes are all movie accurate. They're screen accurate. These are not bought off the rack kind of thing. And so we do charity work, all over. Anyway, the point I said that to say this, I was a Darth Vader for a few years until my armor got too heavy for the Darth Vader costume got too heavy for my back. And so I use his diction and his phrasing and stuff like that, and of course runs through a little bit of processing on my computer. But so I do voiceovers for Darth Vader, if birthday greetings or whatever. I just recently put up on Facebook a Happy Thanksgiving. So yeah, so I do a little Star Wars playing around. My studio is 100% Star Trek. Um, I can't say that I don't own about 4 different Star Trek costumes and 3 different Star Wars costumes, and can't say that I don't.
Well, Johnny and I aren't
I
gonna
I
talk
would
about
own
our
I would own
costumes. It's
I would own stuff like that, but I live in Manhattan. We don't have storage for things like that.
Well, isn't that
There's no
normal, clothing for Manhattans on a Friday night, stuff like
Yeah,
that?
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
We're most of us dressed like, Yoda.
okay.
Yeah,
and
Pizza the Hut.
but
Yeah,
that but
w
now how long have you been doing the Star Wars, character stuff?
About 5 years or so, about 5 years, yeah.
Okay.
I was just at a charity event, a thing out here in LA called Combat Radio, and it's for children with cancer. It was at the Saban Theater, and I was Emperor Palpatine for that. I have a whole latex mask and his whole costume, so I was
But
Oh,
you started that
wow.
before your
Have you
narration career, correct?
Yes, yes,
So you were
yes.
doing voicing,
I
you were
was,
playing characters.
I was.
So I thought you said you had no acting background.
No, I said I didn't take any classes.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
he did. Yeah,
Okay.
see, Don, you try to catch him up there.
Again
He's got a
again, I
lot of
said
friends,
I'm my
listeners,
own
so watch it.
character. I was my own character before for a long time.
Has your work with the Star Trek and all the charity things, has it led to meeting the, actual stars and actors from the shows?
Um, I have not, but for example, one of the costumes you can do is you can be a stormtrooper. I have many friends who have the full stormtrooper armor, and when the first season of The Mandalorian was being shot, oftentimes and I lied. There is a story. Oftentimes, productions when they need extra stormtroopers or whatever, in the case of the season finale for season 1 of Mandalorian, most of the stormtroopers in those shots at the battle of the end were all friends of mine. So they got their
Oh,
costumes,
wow.
they got to play real stormtroopers in a real Star Wars thing. Now, my connection with reality is when Weird Al Yankovic goes on tour, he's got 2 songs that are Star Wars parodies. And when he goes on tour, he often reaches out to the local chapter of the 501st wherever he's at. So a few years ago, he played at the Greek Theater here in Hollywood, and I was the Darth Vader on stage with 6 other stormtrooper friends of mine for the Star Wars songs that he plays. So got to meet Weird Al, and backstage, there
Cool.
was a bunch of other celebrities that were VIPs that came to his concert, and they popped in and took pictures with us and stuff like that. So yeah, we do get the chance to. Some of us have met more than others.
Was Mandalorian 2 seasons? Is that how long that ran?
Correct, and I think the 3rd is
Yeah.
coming out, I think, yes.
I watched, like, 2 episodes, and I said, "Is this guy wearing a bucket on his head for the whole time?" And
Yes.
someone said, "Yes," so I stopped watching. I'm not gonna watch a talking bucket.
I
Yeah,
have I have I have
I
that
stopped.
helmet up on my soffit,
That's
and actually,
it's
yeah,
a
I
helmet,
do.
it's a bucket.
It's a
It's
helmet.
a
Well,
it's a
no,
mop
we call
bucket
them
upside down.
buckets. All in the 501st, they are called buckets. Buckets on, buckets off, but yes, it's a helmet. It protects from blaster fire. Come on, give me a break.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good look.
Now, does that influence the types of stories that you go after?
No, I go after any story that seems interesting to me. I mean, yes,
Have you ever
I would love
narrated with a bucket on your head?
it would sound like this, I think, if I did.
This I wanted to is that actually, Pascal the whole time? Is he or is somebody else, wearing the bucket and he just does
No,
his
so
voiceover?
if my information is correct, at the beginning of production, it was him in the costume and him doing the voice, but then after a while, it became another guy in costume, and he just did the ADR.
See,
Yeah,
that's the gig you want.
absolutely.
Have someone else do yeah, have
Top
someone else do
billing
all the actual
top
hard
billing
work.
for just
Yeah,
the
yeah.
voice? You bet, you bet.
So what would you
Sorry,
take
I went off on a
I
tangent.
what would be the perfect book that, could come along or actually, I wanna back up, though. So you've been doing this 4 years,
Mhm.
um, and if someone was starting today, or if you were starting today, what would you do differently than when you started,
What
if
would I do
anything?
differently? Yeah, I maybe it's because of my generation, my age, I'll say the joke about how I don't understand these kids with their U faces and TikToks and all this other kind of stuff. I don't know enough about this social media aspect of this industry, how to promote, how to market. I get told people give me the English words and they explain it to me and it goes into my ear holes, but it doesn't something up here, it stops. And so I don't understand that part. I wish I could flip a switch or understand how to better use social media for our, you know, for this industry. I feel like I'm kind of just slogging away or going I'm taking the long road. Sometimes I feel like there is a better path, but I don't know what it is. I'm still looking.
I think Tom Deere, has some, information on that. Don has great information on how to use separate workshops. I think Anna Clements, whose birthday is today, has information on that. I mean, there are weirdly or goodly enough, there are coaches for almost everything you want, but
Sure.
the right use of social media is so important now because, frankly, a lot of the people who cast us are younger now and therefore are on
Yeah.
social media, the difference. I
Yeah.
mean, and so you need to sort of I've met they're not my best friends, but I've met friends and I've met casting people on social media who I otherwise wouldn't have access to. And since they've cast me, we've gotten to know each other. But my initial meeting with them was hello and friendship on social media.
Yeah.
Um, it's a I think it's a horrible, horrible thing, but it's there. I
It
mean,
is.
it's become the use of it has become horrible. It should be the best invention since the history of gravity, but it's not. It's really been
Any
abused. Social media.
any tool, no matter how good, can be abused, can be used wrongly.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, and
yeah.
that's how I feel about social media and everything like that. And I feel that social media, as it shortens people's attention spans and it shortens the way that we take in information, it has changed how people listen to audiobooks.
Right.
If I'm listening to an audiobook, a Dean Koontz audiobook right now, that's I think it was produced a good 10 years ago, and the style of narration is very different than the style of narration that publishers say that the listener wants. Just the way, I've read on TikTok, so many listeners listen to books at faster than normal speed. And I have asked multiple times on these forums, like, why do you do that? You could get a full if you're hungry, you could get a full stomach with a Big Mac and fries in 5 minutes, and the solution is the same. Or you could sit down to a 5-course meal over the course of 90 minutes, and the result is the same, but the journey was completely different. I, as the narrator, am pausing, am inflecting, I'm enunciating, I'm telling a story in a certain way that I want you to understand. No good campfire story was told at 1.5 times speed. And I blame social media for that because we're programmed now to take things at faster speeds and smaller sound bites, quicker sound bites, and the attention span, the collective attention span is just getting shorter. So when I pause on purpose in a story
Yes.
and it's sped up like this, and I pause, what you do, what did you just do to my work?
It
You
doesn't
know?
happen on Broadway. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I again, that's another fascinating thing I find about the industry is like many things, narration is changing from the last,
Yeah.
few to several years.
But
Oh, yeah.
folks, so two things. One, we can't slow that down. It's going to change. If you notice,
Yeah.
TV show or streaming shows now fascinate me in that they're showing 7 different points of view and they're toggling between them very quickly. And
Mhm.
like the first episode or 3, I can't even figure out who's whom, where, when. But the reality is, I'm not in the demographic that they are shooting for. And if it takes me, 2 episodes to figure it all out, fine. But I do find some of them fascinating when they're toggling back and forth between something that was 10 years ago and something that's this year. And they don't even kind of make a transition that makes any logical sense to me at first. But over
Mm,
time, I've come to go, oh, that's kind of cool the way they do that. And I just suspect the whole thing is going to speed up. And the question
yeah,
is it relative? If your pause was, you took a pause and let's say you take 2 seconds
right.
and where normally you take a 1 second pause, but for something you want your dramatic pause happened to be 2 seconds, twice as long as another. The question is it at 1.2 or 1.5 while you thought 2 seconds was perfect, since it's relative to the rest of your
Right.
pauses, does it come across for the people, the younger audience, as the same emotional effect? And I don't know the answer to
Yeah.
that. That's the question, but they are doing it and I don't see it
Mhm.
changing.
I agree with you 1,000% about if it's relative, the ratio is gonna be the same across the whole book. Some of the answers I've gotten when I ask these questions on these forums is my attention span isn't long enough to listen to it at regular speed. That
Jesus.
is the greatest, right, Johnny? Right? My attention
Yeah,
again,
well,
and my
you
point
know how
is
I feel about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
my attention
It
span
but
I can't listen, my mind will drift,
Okay.
and I'm like,
yeah,
"Wow."
I
Yeah,
remind you so
exactly.
many
What are you gonna do? Go
when
ahead.
earlier in the days of audiobook, when at the beginning of audiobook world, and I was there for it, the demos were, like, very long
Mhm.
because you wouldn't separate into 5, 6, 7 different demos. It'd be one long ass demo. So they'd have to speed through the fiction to the nonfiction to hear your French voice, and I understood that was problematic, and they'd have to speed through. But right now, if you're watching a movie or television show or sitting in a theater, you're not judging the actors based on the pauses, particularly in a film. I mean, I always do the thing when you think about, like, I'm trying to say the right words to say. So I'm thinking about the words before I say it. So I'm like, what's the best way to say this to make the point? It's like Robert De Niro, like a cup of coffee. Yeah, all that shit before he decides to have a cup of coffee, that's who he is, and it's part of his
Right,
nature. In an
right.
audiobook, you have to speed that up. So I guess the lesson is you need to take pauses because human beings do, and generally you're playing literate people, just humans who speak or rocks that speak like humans who don't know
Right.
there's a human. Anyway, pauses are natural. The trick is for the actor, you've got to take your pause, understanding there's a listener out there. Your pause can't be so long that they think something's wrong with the equipment or something's
Correct,
wrong. You have to be a
correct.
little aware of it. I've always said you could take a pregnant pause, but you can't let your pause give birth.
I like
It's
that.
somewhere in there. So you've got to
Yeah,
find a happy medium. But for people who speed up in actors' work, I have nothing to say to them. It's their dollar. They do what they want. They enjoy it at their own level. But I think it's you know what? Then don't look at the entire Mona Lisa. Just look at the bottom left-hand corner and go home because you're
yeah.
not ready for the whole picture. It's just,
Again,
if that's
Yeah.
go
go
get
ahead.
the Big Mac and fries. The result is the same, you're no longer
Yeah.
hungry, but the experience was completely different.
Well, and I
Yeah,
still
yeah.
go.
Read the book yourself, you lazy bastard. That's what I say.
Well, but here's the other thing, though. What I don't know is if somebody's listened to 20 books at 1.2 or 1.5, then that becomes for them what the norm is. And
Sure.
Yeah.
I have read, you know,
Sure.
because of all the smartphones and stuff, the younger generation, I mean, the speed at which they handle a game controller. I watch my kids do that, and yeah, the game, you know, Xbox type thing, that type. And the speed at which they are task switching during that whole process in some of the games that I've observed is crazy amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So far beyond my comprehension. And I'm a tech guy, and in the sense that I don't mind things that require a whole bunch of time to figure out and that sort of stuff. And I look at some of what they're doing and say, wow. But they do say it is changing their brains, and that they are the younger generation is definitely into faster task switching. And it'll be a decade or three
It
before they figure out whether that turned out to be a fantastic thing or a
it
negative.
depends. It depends on what they're doing with all that time they save.
Yeah.
You know, they even shorten, you know, laughing out loud is LOL, and even that gets too long. Now it's just L or something. You know, I mean, you're saving all this time by bastardizing the language and the arts wherever you can.
Yeah.
What are you doing with the time you saved? I mean, in other words, if I saved all this time, now I've got a big chunk of, I've got 3 hours I never had before. If I use those, um, just to do nothing, I haven't changed anything. If in those 3 hours I write a world-changing novel, or I just write something, or do something, create art, do something, okay, but all I see is people speeding things up because they want things, they're used to things coming fast, little blurbs, little
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
I don't wanna be part of, and this sounds like an old guy talking, and I don't really care, I don't want to be part of losing art in favor of, the immediacy of the message.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well,
Sure.
Because the message is wrapped up in the art in which it's delivered, and I think there's an appreciation of both.
okay. Well,
God
here's what
damn
I
it.
want to
I
do. I want to put it out there
Get
for
off my
everybody who's
lawn.
watching and listening. If you know somebody that has a counter argument to this, and that they are the ones that enjoy it faster, I want to have you on and help you educate. I would like to
I would
understand the other
I
point
would
of
listen
view
to
and
that.
why
Leslie's
you're
right.
doing it. And so you know,
Leslie says the time you save allows for more scrolling. That's absolutely right. It just lets you waste time somewhere else.
well,
Well,
yeah,
I brought up that argument about speeding up the audio just as another example of how I am not getting the social media aspect. Again, it all wraps up into this my generation, my age, or whatever, and these kids with their newfangled stuff.
Yeah.
So that going back to whatever the original question was, it was that was something that I would do differently is try and I'm still trying, not so it's not even in the past tense, in the future tense, trying to get a better grip on social media
okay.
for this career.
Well,
Yeah.
the one thing is it ain't over. You still can get
No.
social media,
Yeah, yeah.
okay? And
Yeah.
really, the real issue is take whatever you're doing now. Like, I'm not on Instagram, or Insta, as I hear it's called. Um, and
Because
That's
Instagram's
too
too
long to
long to
be
yeah,
there.
say.
that's correct. I mean, they
It's
say,
too long to
you know,
say
follow me
Instagram.
on Insta, Facebook, X, whatever. So the point
Yeah.
is, I'm not on it. And my wife is, and a bunch of other people I know are. And I realize, hey, there's an area that I have a total blind spot to. It could be a fantastic addition to what I'm doing, and I'm
Yeah.
totally ignorant. So what do I need to do? Find some people that are really good at that, just like we recommend people find a good coach for their narration. The three of us are old guys, or at least one of us are. I'm the old guy. Anyway, point being, I need to find some younger people that are experts and can show me what I'm missing in these other areas. And then I can decide, okay, that's worth some more time, or
Yeah.
nope, I'm close enough that I don't care. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's an
Eric,
open
you're
invite.
on Instagram, right?
I
What?
am.
Eric? Yeah.
I am.
I think Instagram is fun. I'll tell you what, it's great. My feed is filled with funny dog memes and cat. It's funny and
That's what I
and
right,
funny
and that's
stuff.
what most of my Instagram is,
Yeah,
stuff to make me laugh or
yeah,
to go, "Oh, look at the
yep.
puppy." Yeah.
It's
You know.
all I care about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. I need laughher these days. I need laughter, you
Oh,
know.
yeah. Oh my god,
Yeah.
don't we all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk politics.
No.
Yeah. And now the laughter will stop. We've left the
Okay,
laughter zone.
now I need to call in an airstrike, you know?
Yeah, that'll work.
There
Uh,
there Well, so what else have you found, Eric, being a few years in? What else have you found? What parts you most enjoy about all this?
So I just recently went through this. So I've experienced this. I've known this for a little while. This industry is an ebb and flow. It is feast and famine. It, you know, one minute you're up, the next minute you're down. I finished a book, my last book, in either late August or early September of this year, and then things went dry. I have a website. I'm on ACX. I'm on a few other um, um, narrator sites and stuff like that. Always looking for work. And I went through about 2 months or so of dryness, and, you know, that feeling of, "Okay, well, you know, the whole imposter syndrome, "Alright, I suck. I that was a fluke. I shouldn't be doing this." And then so I went back to ACX and I started auditioning for royalty share stuff just for a couple reasons. One, to stay practice, stay current, to get better. I'm always auditioning, to do that, and who knows, maybe I'd find a royalty share that would sell, you know, make a little bit of money off of it. And I joined, another, publishing group. I joined Anthony Pica's Academy Voices, within about the same day. Within 24 hours, I got one of the royalty shares, and I was, awarded, Dracula on Academy Voices. It's royalty share, it's all
Oh,
public
nice.
domain, and I'm actually in the process of proofing that right now. That's a long one, 160,000 words. Luckily, I didn't have to do the female, diary part, so it probably chopped off 20,000 words for me. But I just went through all of Dracula. That was fun, he says sarcastically, because if anybody who's ever read it, the prose in that book is old, it's old English and stuff like that, and there's, oh my god, how did he write? What did he just say? Going back and take after take after take. Long story short, in the space of a week, I went from nothing to having 5 books in queue because a previous author that I had wanted me to came back to me and wanted me to do the other 2 zombie apocalypse books in her list. And then I got another one, an author who found me on my website contacted me and said, "After Thanksgiving, I want you to." So it's a feast or famine thing. I've learned that that's what I enjoy. I enjoy the ride up. I enjoy this part. I don't enjoy this part so much. I like I like the, yes, I have things to do. I have things to keep me busy. A question I get a lot, or, you know, that I've answered a lot is, well, for really beginning people, what do you do? Do you audition for more than one? What if you get them both? And my answer is always this: you should be so lucky as to be able to say, "I'm busy right now. I can do you later." That should be your goal, is to be
Yep.
that busy that you have to start stacking them up. So never be
Which
afraid of
brings me,
auditioning.
it's so much easier, it seems, and so much more likely to get work if you're currently working.
Why is that? You're
It's that way.
exactly right.
I know it's always that way. If you're totally out
Yes.
of work, man, you can't get a break. If you're busy, it's like, "Holy crap, all this stuff's coming in," which I'm gonna, here's a piece of advice I'll share again. This is totally free. Look, when you're in our business and your book that you've got 5 books, I believe it's totally fine to brag on social media, "Just got Dracula, I'm so excited, blah, blah, blah." I think it's a mistake to say, "I'm booked until May 2025." Which people
Good
do a lot.
point.
I've got books up to b and the
Good
problem with
distinction.
that is, you may still be able to take other work, but if I'm Johnny Heller publisher and I'm saying, "Oh, I was gonna use Eric, but he's booked, I'll find somebody else." Well, I could, if you didn't say that to me, I could have called you, so you could have found a way to work it in.
Yep.
And in terms of
Good
auditioning,
distinction.
I audition all the time. I
Yep.
still audition. Sometimes I get books, sometimes I audition. After the audition's over, if something else comes up that interferes, I'll write back, say, "Listen, I know the audition's out there. No worries, but I've got another offer which I'm gonna take, which may affect my ability to do your book. I'm giving you sort of a coming back."
Yep.
Yeah, I feel I've done my job then, because I just today heard from a publisher, "Oh, I forgot, Johnny, we almost forgot all about this. You've been approved to do this book." I'm like, "Well, that window's closed. So
Yeah.
now we have to set, is it okay if we do," and generally they'll negotiate. People have
Sure.
to understand, in our business, negotiation is crucial. You don't have, if the answer is, if you want to say yes, find a way to say yes. Generally, those due dates are not marked in stone.
Yeah.
They're marked in stone once you agree to them, but the negotiation of them is entirely up to you.
Yeah. That's a very good distinction about not putting yourself out of commission. because
Yeah, just say
yeah,
if I say, "My people are hiring Eric, I better get him. I
yeah,
wanna get him while he's hot."
yeah.
That's great. But people say, "I wanna hire Eric, but he just wrote that he's busy till June." I'm like, "What then?" Well, that you just
Right.
lost work.
Do
Sure.
you
Yeah.
And that's yeah.
and Eric, do you leave, so let's say you have a book and you do your analysis and you think, "Okay, I could complete that in 4 weeks." Pick your time frame. Do you also pad that out?
I my motto is under promise and over deliver. I am just like Scotty and the USS Enterprise, and I will tell Captain Kirk that it takes 4 weeks to do it when it's really gonna take 2.
Good. So
I do
that's how
that
you can
every
fit
time.
things in because you have not told them the minimum time.
No, no, under promise and over deliver.
Okay, yeah, and Johnny always hates being early on all his deliverables. That's the rumor that I heard. Is that correct, Johnny? Why don't you explain in case
No.
we have somebody new here? What do you
Yeah,
do, Johnny?
I've never I've done, a lot of I've never been late on a book ever. And
But
if anything comes up that may affect the schedule, like if I get you get colds, you get sick, things happen, people pass, there's who knows? Let the publisher know what's going on.
Mhm.
There in every deal, almost every deal, there is leeway because it's human beings. Once the publisher or rights holder gives you the book, for the most part, they don't wanna be bothered by it, they have other things to do. They've given it to you, they trust you to do your end, which means turn it in when you said. If toward the end, say, "Oh, by the way, I should let you know I missed 2 weeks because I had, I don't know,
Cold.
lumbago," whatever that is. So, I don't know what that is, but if you have it, you'd probably miss a couple weeks. So, I think it's a dance. Anyway, so you're gonna be late, so you're late. You have to let them know when it happens.
Mhm.
I know stories of people who said, "I'm too sick to do this. I can't get it done right now." And the same day they said they were sick, they were seeing it, shindigs with other
Um,
publishers,
yeah,
which doesn't things word gets out. So you wanna deliver on the date you said or sooner. If you get the book to them sooner, you've not only done your job, you've shown them that and sometimes if you get the book done sooner, you have room to do another book.
yeah,
right.
Like if you do any of those lit RPGs, those, Dungeon and Dragons kinda
correct.
things, if you do 1 book, I tell you the author's already got book 7 waiting.
Yeah,
The series is
yeah,
there,
yeah,
and a lot of times you're gonna get and you do not know when the publisher is gonna throw the book 2, book 3, book 4 at you, and it could be in the middle of your busy time.
yeah,
So you've got to be able to if you turned your book in early, that gives you 3, 4, or 5 days to get to work on another one.
yep,
You gotta
yep,
strike while the iron's hot
absolutely.
yeah, so if you're consistently on time or early and
Yep,
professional and get it
yeah.
all done, my god,
Communication
that's
is key.
the
Talk with your
yeah,
authors.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's not awards that you win, it's getting hired again by the same
yeah,
people that
yeah,
show that you've done a good job.
Yeah, and
yeah,
whenever my wife was doing royalty share, we told those authors if a per finished hour book comes in, then those books have a higher
Big
priority, and
priority?
our schedule could slip, and we let
okay,
them know up front. Because
right,
we also give them the option of paying, if they wanted pure royalty share, which we almost never do anymore. But when we did that, we let them know if somebody came in and was doing a royalty share and the royalty share plus type concept where they were paying $100 an hour for the production cost and royalty share, those were a higher priority. And then if it was a per finished hour, that's the highest priority. And we let them know up front, if you want royalty share, straight royalty share, that's cool. But we would always pad those out so that we could take in the other things without getting stuck with, wow, I've
yeah,
got another 10 hours on this royalty share book. And yet Johnny's calling me and asking me to do this one that would have been paying $300 an hour. Johnny, I can't do your book. No, 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 no. If it's royalty share, then we make sure they know, hey, occasionally something will come in that will preempt you, but and then we let them know along the way. And most of the time we were still done early, but nonetheless, we
yeah,
Yeah,
made sure that we weren't locked into something that was, revenue four
and
years from
and
now.
as Eric said, the communication with your rights holder, anybody else you're working with, is key.
Yeah,
mhm,
If as long as
absolutely.
you communicate, people just it's the same when you go into a restaurant and it's really busy. Even if it gets served, if the waiter says, "I'll be right with you," that's all you need.
just let
That
you
can
know
you
I'm
the
hit
the
let
fa
them know you're there, right.
yes, that's everything.
Haven't
So
forgot
let
about
people
you.
I'm here.
Cool, cool,
Yeah.
cool. Well,
That's
Yes,
Yeah.
So we're at the wrap-up time here. So, Eric, anything that you want to promote or that we should look forward to coming up that you have on your
Um,
mind?
so like I said, Dracula will be out in a couple months. Again, it's that'll be on Anthony Pica's Academy Voices. I don't know where that gets actually posted for purchase or whatever, but that my website is just ericpriessman.com, EricPriessman. You can contact me via that website if you so choose. And no, I'm going to try and ride this wave of momentum from the end of 2024 and as far into 2025 as I can keep it.
Cool, cool, cool.
That's great.
Johnny,
Yeah,
anything you want to
I
promote?
at first, it's been wonderful having you, Eric, and I've really appreciated this chat.
my
You're a great
pleasure.
guy. I'm glad to know
This
you
was
better.
fun.
Well, here I've got a few things coming out. Carson Magnificent just came out, the Johnny Carson book, and I did a royalty share book while I had some downtime, which I don't have anymore, which should come out, I think, within the month. Harpo Speaks, Harpo Marx's book.
Wow.
Ah,
Public domain, so I recorded it. It's a very long book, but it's great. I think it's great because I'm a Marx fan, both Carl and Groucho. So this is Harpo Speaks, that's coming out, and we're planning a workcation. There won't be any Splendiferous for the APAC because there's gonna be a national SAG-AFTRA meeting, but I am looking at a Santa Fe in May, and then, of course, the 10th anniversary of the New England Narrator Retreat in October, and there'll be other things, workshops come in there. You'll follow me at johnnyheller.com or on Facebook or the Insta. We can be on the Insta and have a slice of zuh. Yeah.
yeah.
Save time in our pizza order by saying zuh.
Yeah. All right, and
Hi.
VOJumpstart.com. I've got all our courses. We had the Black Friday sale, and
Yeah.
actually we're extending it. It went insanely well, so we're going to extend that out another week. And I don't know if the new code's up yet or not, but it'll be up in the next couple hours, and that'll run through this next Friday. So if you're live and you're watching this or within the next day or two, all our courses. So go check out VOJumpstart.com. It's going amazingly well. I'm also working on a brand new website for my wife, and it's going so well, and I've got all the pieces behind the scenes. We're going to start doing this for some other people as well, so I'll talk about that over the next couple of weeks because I've got some new cool stuff. I've got the fantastic player for samples. I'm real happy with some of the tech I found behind the scenes, and so we're going to let this out. So over the next month, you'll see some
Okay.
interesting things about websites available and stuff like that. So cool stuff, and
Great.
looking forward
And
to
if
the
you like
holidays.
this, please make comments. Comment that you like it. The comments help us a lot.
Comment, subscribe, share this on social
Smash
media.
that like button,
Yeah, the like button's
as
great
the
too.
kids
It
say
really
these
is helpful.
days.
It gets it out to more people. So thank you for being here. And as always, we look forward to seeing you on the wires. Have a great week. Talk to you later.
Bye, all.
See you next
Bye.
week. Bye bye.